Hi everyone, I'm Robbie Couch, the author of The Sky Blues, and it's so great to be with you. Hello, Charleston. I am so happy and honored to be chatting with y'all today. I'm not from the South, but I just said y'all. I don't know if I'm breaking any rules there. I'm sorry, I'm from Michigan. But as I said, I'm Robbie Couch. I'm the author of The Sky Blues, which is a contemporary YA novel. It's super queer themed. The main character is gay. His name is Sky Baker. And a lot of Sky's story overlaps with my own experiences growing up in small town Michigan. I grew up, I don't know if y'all have been around Michigan people, but we tend to point to our hand if we're saying like where we're from. So I'm from this area, which is just outside of Flint, Michigan. It's like an hour and a half north of Detroit. And yeah, I grew up in Clio, Michigan. I went to school at Michigan State. Came out of the closet when I was 18. Came out as gay, which was quite the experience. And a lot of my experiences being from a predominantly white hometown in the rural Rust Belt of the country informed the Sky Blues and the story and the world that Sky sort of inhabits in the book. It was a blast to write. I say it's kind of autobiographical-ish because a lot of Sky's experiences are different than my own. He deals with a lot of blatant homophobia that I didn't have to deal with because I wasn't out in high school like Sky is. Yeah, we definitely have differing life experiences in many foundational ways, but the world around Sky in his fictional hometown of Rockledge, Michigan, is very much built from my own experiences in my head growing up in that area of the country and the experiences that I had being a small town gay, if you will. And so, yeah, these are tremendous questions. I'm so stoked to be reading them and to be thinking about them and to answer them. So the first question here is, what inspired you to write The Sky Blues? Great question. I wanted to write The Sky Blues because, simply put, I think that there aren't enough queer stories out there, especially for young LGBTQ people. I think it's so critically important that no matter who you are, your background, your life experiences, you're able to see yourself in the media around you, the world around you. So the books you read, the TV shows you watch, the films that you watch, all of that is so important to be able to see yourself or some version of yourself reflected back in the experiences and the characters and the stories that we see in the world around us. And I feel like when it comes to LGBTQ people, we're still not quite there yet. There's been a big steps forward in terms of the progress made in terms of queer representation in books and in film and in television, but we need more of it. We need better quality representation, in my opinion. And so I knew I wanted to write The Sky Blues because I was thinking that, if I had a story like this when I was in high school, which was roughly a decade ago, maybe a little bit more than a decade ago, it would have made a really big difference in my life to have a story that had a character that reflected my own experiences and my own, who was traveling down a similar pathway in a certain sense. So it was really important to me to have not only a story that was fun and hopefully pretty bingeable in terms of how quickly people read through it, but also had a bigger impact and really was a story where LGBTQ people could read it and maybe see a part of themselves in the story. So that's why I decided to write The Sky Blues. This next question. Though Sky is an out and proud gay teen, he's concerned with not only how he's perceived by the bullies at his school, but also by one of his best friends, Marshall, who is straight. Why did this dynamic between the two friends feel important to explore? I love this question. Hats off to whoever came up with this question. I love this question because I haven't really gotten this question asked, and I think it's a really important and cool part of the story. So Sky is, and I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but Sky does have this perception that he can't be his full, authentic self at his school and in his hometown, even among his best friend Marshall, who he loves to death, and they're besties. But he still feels like there's a part of him that can't fully be on display because he's queer and Marshall is not. And there's a really great moment that, again, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a really great moment at Marshall's house after there's been some bumpy, rocky waters in their relationship where they both kind of have this moment where they open up and talk about experiences that they've had being Black, because Marshall is Black, and Sky talks about his identity as a gay person, and they're really vulnerable and open, and they can kind of see themselves in a new, authentic way that they hadn't been able to see each other before. And I think that's sort of something that is a lot of young queer people, I know I could relate to that experience of feeling like, even if someone is accepting of me being gay, are there still aspects of my identity that I have to kind of like have a little bit more, hold those cards a little bit closer to myself, because I can't be truly my authentic self. And Sky learns in this case that he absolutely can, and that Marshall is his best friend, regardless, unconditionally, loves him to death. And yeah, I really love this question because it's an important part of the story, I think. And yeah, I love Marshall. He's a great character. And then the third question here, another great question. Miss Winter is the teacher we all wish we had in high school. Did you have a teacher like Miss Winter in your life? Excuse me. That's a really great question. It's interesting because I was thinking about Miss Winter throughout the process of writing the character, and she evolved through different phases of the book. And for me, I don't think there's one specific person that truly inspired Miss Winter, but I drew from a lot of the great teachers that I had throughout my life, and not only teachers, but just adults when I was younger in general that really inspired me and helped me feel at home in their classrooms or in their spaces, wherever I was with them. And looking back, like my favorite, I remember Mr. Volk was my teacher in elementary school, and there was a lot of aspects to how he taught and how he made me feel included in his classroom that I kind of drew from. There was also Mrs. Taylor in high school, and Mrs. Urbanowski was actually my yearbook teacher in high school. And yeah, there was a handful of teachers throughout my experiences in school that were really wonderful to be in their classes. So although I didn't have a specific Miss Winter that I pulled from, and the character is not completely inspired by one person, there's definitely a handful of teachers that kind of melted together in my head, and Miss Winter sort of appeared. But yeah, Miss Winter was a blast to write, a really fun character, especially as an adult who can kind of relate to Miss Winter's experiences in some way, and kind of have a conflicting relationship and dynamic with my hometown. She's a really cool character, and I hope people who read it like Miss Winter. And then the last question here, were there any versions of the story where Sky's mother was supportive of who he was and how important... Sorry, let me start that again. Were there any versions of the story where Sky's mother was supportive of who he was, and how important was it to you to include the theme of found family? Another great question. I love these questions. That is super interesting because I really wrestled with having a later chapter in the book where Sky's mom came back into the story in a way that well, I don't want to give too much away, but there was a few versions of the story where Sky's mom came back into his life in a pretty profound way. But it was difficult for me to make it work with the structure of the story that already existed. And at the end of the day, one of the major themes of the Sky Blues is the idea of chosen family, and found family rather. And that's the idea, if that's kind of a term that's unfamiliar with people who are listening or watching, that we can kind of find our own family, right? Like, yes, it's wonderful if the family we're born into is loving and accepting and love us for who we are. But if they're not, we can find other people who love us unconditionally and accept us for who we are out there in the world, and they become our family, right? So that was one of the major themes I wanted to have in the Sky Blues, was that Sky may have felt certain levels of family rejection, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have a family. It doesn't mean he doesn't have people who care for him, support him, and will fight for him. And so I realized that having that being one of the major themes of the story, it wasn't absolutely critical that that Sky's mom would come back to play in a fundamental way. I think the theme of the story, the ideas held up even with her not being present on the page later in the story. So I think that's kind of baked into the message of Sky, right? Like you, maybe down the road at some point, Sky's mom will come around. Who knows? But at the end of the book, as it is, that spoiler alert didn't happen. So yeah, that's another great question. All of these are really great questions. And yeah, the Sky Blues is out April 6th. I'm not exactly sure when this will be shared. If it's after April 6th, make sure you get a copy and check it out. And please connect with me on social media as well. On Instagram, I'm at Robbie Couch, and on Twitter, I'm at Robbie Couch, but there's an underscore between my first and last name. Say hi, connect with me, ask me more questions about the book. I'm an open book when it comes to talking about writing and the Sky Blues. And yeah, this was a blast. Thanks so much, y'all. Bye.